Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Before we get started, if you have your cell phone on, could I ask that you please turn it off or at least put it on the silent feature? We love your ringtones, but they kind of can be disruptive partway through the hearing. Yeah, I heard yours. This hearing is being live streamed on YouTube, so I'd ask all those that come forward to speak to the application today to use the microphones provided to ensure that all the discussions can be heard clearly. So just as a preliminary matter, we want to acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, of the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. So in accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act, 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that applies to property, permission to extend or alter legal non-conforming uses, and consent to sever property to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must complete a decision request card. The cards are available at the end of the table. And please ensure that you include your email address on this form. Once completed, please give the card to a member of the staff seated to my right. If you do not agree with the decision of the Committee of Adjustment, most decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, or TLAB. Appeal instructions are set out on the bottom of the decision of the committee, and more information about the TLAB can be found on either the TLAB or committee site, both of which can be accessed through the City of Toronto website. To ensure a fair and timely hearing, I will vet the agenda to determine which applications can be dealt with immediately and which applications have individuals other than the agent or applicant that wish to address the committee. I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda and will ask for individuals to identify themselves. If there are people in interest, the matter will be held until all non-contested applications have been dealt with. If your item is held, we strongly advise that the applicant agent meet with the interested parties outside the hearing room to discuss and/or resolve concerns or issues. If no person is present in interest, the item will be called in the order of the agenda for non-contested applications. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant will proceed with their presentation if required. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you are reaching the 5 minutes. There is a timer up on the wall so you can self-monitor. When addressing the committee, please come forward to the podium, clearly state your name and address, and provide your decision request card to the committee staff. Please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. If you have a written submission that you read from, please hand it to the Deputy Secretary Treasurer when you are done. The applicant or agent will proceed first and will make a presentation to the committee of the application as submitted. Please note that the committee may not entertain extensive revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application to ensure that any revisions are accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then, individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. If there are several speakers sharing the same view, please select a spokesperson to present the group's opinion. We want to hear your views, however, covering the same points is not required. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker. When all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has the opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speaker. That will then mark the end of the discussion, and the application will then be taken into committee for a decision. Are there any declarations of interest in this time slot?
No, Madam Chair.
Any files to be closed? Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we are now going to vet the agenda. Item number 21, 160 WESTMOUNT Avenue. Agent or applicant? Thank you. Thank you. Anyone in interest? Item number 22, 1 EASTDALE Avenue. Agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll stand that matter down. You can have a discussion outside the room. Item 23, 169 Day Avenue, agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? 24, 80 Barrington Avenue, agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? Number 25, 20 Rose Park Crescent, agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? Number 26, 287 Windermere Avenue, agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? Number 27, 94 Lavinia Avenue, agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? Number 28, 468 Northcliffe Boulevard, agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? 29, 383 Margueretta Street, agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? Number 30, 10 REDNOR Road, agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? Okay, so the only item we're holding down in this time slot is number 22, 1 EASTDALE Avenue. So we will start with item number 160 Westmount Avenue. Please come forward. Committee has before a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a covering letter from Bernard Watt, the agent, and email correspondence from the assistant planner, community planning, city planning, Etobicoke, York District. And can you have your name and address for the record, please?
Bernard Watt, I'm the architect, 3 Fallis Avenue.
Okay, thank you. Panel members, to your presentation, do you wish to proceed with questions? Any questions, panel members?
Mr. Watt, how many other houses in this neighborhood have basement walkout that alters the sidewall that faces the street?
Not in the immediate vicinity. I'm not familiar what would occur beyond. However, this is not really a house, it's a duplex originally. In that sense, it's not a typical condition. There's only 2 duplexes on the street.
Any other questions, panel members? Okay, thank you. We're in committee, discussion or motion?
Madam Chair, there is no change to the structure, and the agent also gave us an explanation as to why this is going through as a principal dwelling rather than triplex, so that it doesn't generate parking variances. I did note there's a basement walkout at number 212, so as stated, there aren't any in the vicinity. There aren't many, but there are some, so the precedent has been set. I think that the proposal fits within the context of the neighborhood, and I would move approval of the application as I think it meets the 4 tests.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Your application's approved.
Thank you very much.
Number 23, 169 Eastdale Avenue. The committee has before a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, and a previous decision of the Committee of Adjustment. Pardon?
Eastdale. That's
Eastdale's held. No, 160 Day, sorry. This decision, a previous decision of the Committee of Adjustment affecting the subject property. And although we saw you this morning, your name and address again for the record, please.
My name is Victor Hippolito. I appear before you as agent for the owners of the subject property.
Okay, thank you. Questions, panel members?
No, I have a question. Why was it overbuilt?
Contractor took it upon himself to push the garage over 1 foot to the west and increase the width by 16 inches.
What happened to the landscaping?
If you refer to the plan, may I approach?
Yes,
I did prepare a sketch to show
because how did it go from third?
of the change. The red identifies the as-built condition, the green what was approved. As for the landscaping, if you refer to your SK1 sheet,
You can go, if you can go back to the microphone, please.
it was reduced.
Well, you had an approval
Had an
for
approval.
32.9, But it's now, you're asking for 8.8,
Correct. That is the existing condition as built,
8.8.
8.8.
But you had permission only to go to 32.9.
32.09.
So how did that happen?
Again, it was no, I wouldn't say it was an oversight. It was something done by the general contractor, which took upon himself to think that this would be a better condition for the owner. And the owner participated in this also. So
Okay.
there is landscaping abutting the north property line. And that is the entire landscaping in the rear yard of the 24.68. Our clients had discussions after this was found with 171 and also the property directly to the east, which is 108 Rogers Road. And they have no objection to the present condition. We're not aware of any report from planning or from, even from right-of-way management.
So was this by the inspector?
Yes.
Okay, but what else changed from the previous approval? Like, this change to the garage would not have reduced the landscaping this much.
That is correct. That's just
So
why
what
I was.
else was done with that rear yard?
So the rear yard, there was more pavement installed. When you refer to the SK sketch, SK1, you'll note that the landscaping is indicated along the north property line. There was substantially more landscaping. This is a rather small rear yard. It is the area where our clients use for leisure space, and they're planning to install a grape arbor where I've indicated as-built trellis area.
So-
That should soften things up a little bit.
So the challenge, though, is that your client, at the time that they came for the original application, were already seeking a variance to the landscaping. So they were well aware of the requirement, and what they got approved was already a reduction. So they must have been aware that doing more would require.
They became aware after we attended to the site, after the inspector noticed it. There is,
So they didn't have
Live
to
there?
approve any of these things? They don't live
yes,
there?
through you, Madam Chair, I guess they approved it in contact with their contractor. They didn't know what the repercussions would be.
They didn't know that there's a big difference between 32% and 8%? I mean,
I couldn't
visually,
answer
that's-
for them. I would say they probably not. They did not know, most likely.
But they knew at the initial application.
Yes,
they
that was.
Realized that what
correct.
they were proposing with the original application was lesser than what the bylaw required.
Yes,
So one would surmise that they would realize that anything,
Yes.
an extension of that would also be lesser than the bylaw required and the approval that they got.
there is an opportunity, through Madam Chair, if this committee finds that there should be an increase in landscaping, we're willing to do that.
Are you able to provide the 32.09% that was approved?
I don't think so.
Okay,
What's the
what's the
proposal?
maximum you can provide?
You can probably go to about 15%, doubling it. Fifteen, maybe 20%.
15 or 20?
Would be up to the committee.
Okay.
Committee then?
Are we in committee? Yeah, because I
Any other
have an
any
idea
other
as well.
questions?
If we're in committee,
Okay, we're in committee.
Okay.
I would move approval of the application and refusal of the alteration. I suppose it would be approval of the application at 32.09.
Yeah, I would refuse variance number 3. And
Yeah,
approve
I'm
the
not sure if we
kind of-
should,
That,
I'm not sure if we should reapprove it. I think perhaps we should reapprove the original.
oh, the original.
Yeah, as in,
But it was
No,
approved-
because it
it was
stands,
approved,
it just stand, and then
It
it
just-
becomes
yeah,
a,
in that case, make it a refuse variance 3.
Variance 3, yeah.
That would be my thinking, would be. to
Yeah, I would
refuse-
agree with that.
Refuse the landscaping variance.
And that's my motion.
So that's going to be your motion to refuse number 3?
Refuse variance 3 and approve 1 and 2.
I'll second that.
All in favor? So your variance number 1 and 2 are approved, variance number 3 is refused.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 24, 80 Barrington Avenue. Committee has before it a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, soft landscaping plan, and spec sheet. Staff report from the acting supervisor, tree protection and plan review, urban forestry. Correspondence in concern or interest from 73 Doncaster Avenue. Good afternoon. Could we have your name and address for the record?
Alicia Menzies, 80 Barrington Avenue.
Sean Naismith, 80 Barrington Avenue.
Are you both speaking?
Jointly, but I'll speak for us.
Okay, so committee members, do you need a presentation or would you like to proceed to questions?
If, the only question I have is, we had a concern expressed by number 73 Doncaster regarding trees. Is there anything,
There's a large tree in the backyard, but the design would not,
it would not impact?
No.
So nothing is going to come down? and-
no, we love our tree. We definitely want to keep
Okay,
it.
that's my only question.
We've got letters of support from our 2 immediate neighbors as well, saying they have no concerns.
Oh, do you want to submit those to the chair?
Sure. Who do I give those to?
Please.
Chair.
Thank you very much. So letters of support from 78 and 82 Barrington.
Good, next to the neighbors.
Okay, any further questions, panel members? Okay, so we're in committee, discussion or motion?
I think it's a truly minor application, except for urban forestry 2. That if there was a request from urban forestry 2 to
So
put
they have a condition on,
condition on trees.
did you know that?
You know that?
Just saying that we cannot damage them?
It's, I'm just looking here.
Which one is it?
Number 2,
they
submission
ca-
of complete application to permit to injure or remove a private tree, but you're saying you don't have to, so it's basically a standard condition. You'll have to apply, like you'll have to talk to forestry anyway.
If we do need to make some adjustment to the trees.
Yeah, I would talk to them. You have to protect them, so there's all the requirements with the,
Fencing and all kinds
Fencing
of
around
things
it
to
and
protect
stuff.
them?
We have to do that regardless.
yeah.
Yes, yeah.
The motion is approval with urban forestry 2 as it meets the 4 tests, and it's not contrary to CSR or the bylaw.
Okay, is there a seconder? Okay, all in favor? So your application is approved subject to the forestry condition, and that'll be noted in the decision that you receive, okay?
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Item number 25, 20 Rose Park Crescent. Committee has before a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Correspondence from the Assistant Planner to Community Planning, City Planning, Toronto and East York District. A staff report from the Acting Supervisor, Tree Protection and Plan Review, Urban Forestry. A report from Planner 2 at Toronto Region Conservation Authority, and correspondence in support or no opposition from 15 and 17 Rose Park Crescent. Good afternoon. Could I have your name and address for the record, please, sir?
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Murray Fern. I'm representing the owners of 20 Rose Park Crescent. You indicated there that you have a letter from one of the neighbors. The owner has put together another 5 additional
Okay, thank you.
circled the names because they're sort of all over the
Okay,
map on each page.
thank you very much. So committee members, presentation or questions? Okay, any questions then?
Just, the extra letters, does that include adjacent neighbors? Do you know off?
It includes the neighbor,
It's
I guess, to the south at number 22.
22
14,
or 16?
22.
22. The neighbor at number 16 has a concern because we're going to have to remove an existing tree that's between the 2 properties. But I guess the genesis of this project was that originally, we wanted to reconstruct the garage in the same location as it is. And in our conversation with the Conservation Authority, they would only approve reconstruction of the garage if it moved up towards the house to be in line with the stable top of slope, which was determined by a geotechnical engineer that was hired to do that. So unfortunately, we originally wanted to rebuild the garage in its current location, but again, the TRCA is requiring us to move it up 2.5 meters closer to the top of the slope. So that's where the tree comes into account. But we've been in touch with, again, not only the TRCA, but the natural ravine and feature protection people, and we have a large planning proposal with regards to protecting the trees and protecting the slope.
You might be coming back again.
Sorry?
You might be coming back with another.
Well, if you approve us today, we won't be coming back, but again, we sort of have no other way to do this without moving it forward as per the TRCA.
So the garage as it currently sits would not meet TRCA's approval as of today?
No, we've been in conversation with them for, God, it's got to be 2 years, I think. And originally, they were going to allow us to reconstruct it in the same place. We were going to maintain the garage and just replace the slab, because that's really what the issue is here, is the slab of the garage is deteriorating. We were going to keep the garage in the same place, keep the garage building itself, but just replace the slab, and they weren't interested in that. They wanted us to move it forward because of, I guess, what's happening in the valley there. Other houses on the valley are, I guess, slowly, I guess there's some deterioration there, so that's what they've sort of indicated that we have to do to reconstruct our garage.
That may affect one of the trees that's currently there.
Yes, it will.
Why didn't you speak to TRC before you come with the application? You have to make another one, maybe.
He did.
Well, we've been speaking with them for
That's
over
why
2
they've had to
years,
move it forward.
2 years.
Yeah,
at least 2 years.
that's why they've had to move the,
Why do you need a height of 4.95 meters for your garage?
Well, that's created because, again, our garage sort of overhangs the slope, right? So we have to take the four corners of the garage and average them to create what the maximum height is. And in fact, the original garage had a 6 and 12 slope, and we've lowered it to a 4 and 12 slope to try to minimize that again. But
so the topography is different.
exactly right, because the ground just slopes off right to the valley there at, I guess, behind where St. Clair Avenue goes across the valley. That's.
Any other questions, panel members? No. Okay, thank you. We're in committee, discussion or motion?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think what's being proposed here is reasonable. This is a very large lot. It's a pie-shaped lot. I don't believe that this is going to have any impact on the neighbors. There also appears to be a lot of support. So I would move approval, as I feel it meets the 4 tests, including forestry condition number 2.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? The application's approved with that condition.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number 26, 287 Windermere Avenue. Committee has before it copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a previous decision of the Committee of Adjustment affecting the subject property, correspondence from the Assistant Planner, Community Planning, City Planning, Toronto and East York District, and correspondence in support or no opposition from 290 Windermere Avenue. Could we have your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Ben Domingos. I'm the agent representing the owners at 287 Windermere Avenue.
Okay. Thank you. Committee members, any questions? Or hesitation?
I guess my only question is, this is, it's a new house, right?
Yes, it is.
How come this wasn't incorporated in your original design and application?
The owners feel there's a very open entrance. The main entrance is very open, and what they want is an airlock. And in order to create an airlock in the existing footprint, the stair, where the stair starts, it's in the way. So they just want a little bit more space to create this little vestibule to have an airlock. That was all.
Okay, I was just
That's,
curious.
it's a very simple, small little thing, yeah, but it's something that was not important to them at the time, but now that they've lived in the house for 5 years, it's important to them now.
Okay,
They didn't recognize that
No.
that condition was going to happen.
Yeah, that's right.
Your landscaping, you're now needing 53% instead of 75%.
Right.
Is that because of the same reason?
Yes, it is, because we're pushing forward the porch and eliminate some of that area that would have been soft landscaping. So it gets reduced slightly, down to the 53% or whatever it is.
It's only a
That reason.
portion of the front porch that's being enclosed, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's what. Okay. Any other questions, panel members? Okay, thank you. We're in committee, discussion or motion?
I think this is extremely minor in nature, entirely meets 4 tests, and move approval.
Okay. All in favor? The application's approved.
Thank you.
Number 27, 94 Lavinia Avenue. Committee has before it a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, a cover letter from Kate Harrison, the agent, including 3 photographs of 2-story homes in the surrounding neighborhood, 2 renderings of the proposed design in comparison to adjacent properties, and the streetscape plan for Lavinia Avenue. Staff reports from the Director of Community Planning, Toronto and East York District, report from the Acting Supervisor, Tree Protection and Plan Review, Urban Forestry, and 4 form letters in support signed by the owners and occupants of 92 and 98 Lavinia Avenue, 305 and 313 Windermere Avenue. Hello, and could we have your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, I'm Catherine Harrison, agent and architect for the owners. My address is 78 DeForest Road, Toronto.
Thank you. Okay, panel members, do you need a presentation or questions? Okay, any questions?
Variance number 5, why do you need a driveway width so wide, 4.59 meters?
Yes, so in order to meet the side yard setbacks that are required by the city, the existing drive goes up the side of the house, and we didn't want to have to move the curb cut. So there's an existing drive, if you look at the site plan, it's 2.87 meters wide right at the property line, and that's the existing driveway. And the new house comes in to meet the new side yard setbacks, and so the garage moved to the middle, and we just need it to flare in order to physically drive into the garage. So the width is taken at its widest possible point, and that's adjacent to the house.
Any other questions, panel members?
and you're okay with the planning conditions?
I am, yes, we are. We have no problem with conditions from urban forestry or from planning.
Okay.
Based on the applicant's,
So no further questions?
no further question.
Okay, so we're in committee, discussion or motion?
Based on the applicant's presentation, I'm satisfied that with the explanation given. I believe the application itself has met the 4 tests, and I'm moving forward for approval of this application.
I'll second it with the planning condition
With the planning
in the August 20th report. I just want to also add that I like the fact that you've moved the house a little bit forward, so it's better lines up in the front.
Thank you.
Okay, forestry was an advisory condition only, right?
Advisory,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so all in favor? Your application's approved on that condition.
Thank you.
Number 28, 468 NORTHCLIFFE Boulevard. Committee has before a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, and correspondence in concern or interest from 473 Westmount Avenue. And for the record, could we have your name, please?
Hi, good afternoon. Ida Evangelista, on behalf of the owners of 468 NORTHCLIFFE Boulevard.
Okay,
I would like to, this gentleman is Aaron Romeo, who lives at 473 Westmount. He is in support of the application. That's the letter that you've received and that you have in front of you.
looking to speak?
If you would like, just to give you some information, some background. So we were in receipt of his letter.
Yes.
And I understand that it's not in your purview to review these situations as mentioned in the letter in regards to the garage and shed. So myself, the designer, and the owners took the liberty of meeting with Mr. Romeo, and we have come to an understanding, and we are going to work together to resolve the issue. And Mr. Romeo's not, he supports the application as it is in front of you. And now that we have an understanding on what we're going to do with the shed and the garage, we're all good. And he's here today in the event that you do have any questions that you want to pose to him. And
So could you just come forward to the microphone just for a moment? Sure. So the agreement that you have with the applicant is a private agreement. It's not something the committee is going to deal with particularly. But you're satisfied and you're removing?
I am satisfied, and I'm ready to remove my concern.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and you are 473 Westmount.
Correct.
Thank you, sir. Okay, committee members, any questions?
With regard to variance number 3,
yes,
I'm not seeing a planning recommendation for it, but would you be amenable to constructing the parking pad with permeable paving?
absolutely. That is definitely the intention.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. We're in committee. Discussion or motion?
I'm prepared to approve this. I would like to make a permeable paver condition on
Okay.
the parking pad.
Okay. So all in favor?
So that motion is approve the application with the condition that the rear parking pad be constructed.
Yeah, permeable pavers. All in favor? Sorry. Yes. I did. Nancy seconded. Thank you. Your application's approved on that condition.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Should have pointed Nancy. I'm sorry. I should have seen. Item number 29, 383 Margueretta Street. The committee has before a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. And your name, please, and
Good afternoon, Edward Lee, architect agent,
Okay.
6 Argyle Street, Toronto.
Argyle Street?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, committee members, do you have any questions?
Do you know what the existing floor space index is?
The existing,
Yeah.
I know it's 111.53
Yeah,
square
be
meters,
some
but I don't
quick
know what
math.
that is in FSI.
if you have the numbers in front of you, I haven't actually calculated it. That would be,
0.75 or something like that? I'm just
Yeah.
guessing.
I think it was high 70s, yes.
Okay. And I know there's a lot of additions in the neighborhood. What you're proposing in terms of the floor space index, is that in keeping with?
Yes, I know it does seem high relative to the 0.69. I did my due diligence, and I looked at a lot of the houses. The adjacent neighbor to the south is a 3-story detached, and there are 2 pairs of semis directly across the street who are also 3 stories. The extent of their additions at the back, I didn't obviously go into their files to see what their FSIs were, but given that the maximum height for this area is 12 meters, there were no issues really with overall height. So so this family, it's a growing family, 3 kids. Their options were to either expand their home or move out of the neighborhood. So looking at the adjacent buildings, I felt like we had a good chance to come before you to request what is essentially a rear 3rd-story addition, because we're not altering the front elevation or maintaining the front slope. So while the FSI does seem high relative to the built form of adjacent neighbors, I do find it is in context.
Okay.
And if we required other minor variances for height, for length, side setback, altogether that might be a lot to ask, but
No other questions? We're in committee. Discussion or motion?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think that this proposal fits within the context of this neighborhood. There are multiple additions that are similar in size, and the height variance is, in my opinion, very minor. So I would move approval of the application as I feel it meets the 4 tests.
All in favor? Your application is approved.
Thank you very much.
Number 30, 10 Rednor Road. Committee has before it a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, correspondence from the agent requesting deferral of the application. Staff report from the acting supervisor, tree protection and plan review, urban forestry. Your name and address, please.
My name is Sonia Langmare. I live at 10 Rednor Road. I'm a co-owner of the house.
Are you asking for deferral of this application?
Yes.
What is the reason for the deferral request?
I've been working on this solo for 2 years. I've worked with the contractor and with the designer, and have learned a lot through this process. It's a challenging process, and put a lot of trust in the designer to accommodate. I'm a single mom. My mom lives in the house with me. I'm trying to build a basement apartment that my mom can be in forever. She's 83 years old. I think the plans right now, I've questioned them with the designer, and I've reached out to another designer and an architect to make sure it's a home that I can live in forever, and it's most importantly, my mom can, if she has mobility issues, that kind of thing. So at this time, when talking with the architect, the ideal would be to be able to kind of start again, to relook at the drawings and not be so restrictive if using these ones.
So you've come to the conclusion that what you've applied for may not actually meet what you feel you're needing?
Yes.
In hindsight, and so you're looking to?
Yes, so, yes.
Is it a new application, or you're looking for a deferral?
I want to do a deferral.
Is it, what are are the variances going to be different?
The variances might be different because there's a cutout piece on the main floor and on the basement floor, which makes the access into the basement floor a bit of a change. So I might be asking for a bit more.
So you already have sort of drawn up new applications?
So we started with a full back without this cutout, and then...
Can I just ask you, sorry to cut you off,
Sure.
but
No problem.
do you anticipate needing a fair amount of time to do this? Because it might be better for you to withdraw and reapply when you're ready, because once the staff are ready to reschedule, they're going to call you, and we would expect it to come back on the agenda. So I don't know what kind of time frame you're looking for yourself.
So when in talking to the architect, she said ideally if she could have a couple of months
Okay.
with it, that would be the ideal. I totally appreciate it. I know this is an extra ask. I'm never going to do this again.
So you
It's
would
my
be ready
forever home, and
early next year?
100% will be ready, 100%.
My inclination would
Okay,
be
thank
that
you.
this is a new application from the sounds of this.
But it's going to cost her too much money.
But what we're hearing is that we're getting an entirely new design.
I don't know. It's going to be where you want this one.
My inclination from what we've heard would be to refuse the deferral, and we can either address this or the applicant withdraw it, but
Can I ask Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, I have a question. So if the applicant or owner comes back in January and say there's 10 variances because it's a totally different design, is that still acceptable as a deferral of what we have before us today, or not really?
And sorry.
I mean, this is only for FSI and
Yeah.
for parking.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's going to be additions or a third floor added, or,
So you would,
I mean, it's still the same, in addition to an existing dwelling with 3 units or less, the fee wouldn't change, but our application fees only cover the cost of processing an application once through the process. So deferrals are not to be expected, they're privileged.
to receive them. I mean, I'm not sure to what extent the revisions are going to be. Sounds ambiguous to me, but again,
So, sorry, we're.
Sorry,
That's-
the other option would be to, if maybe it's not going to change that much, if you were to approve this,
And then-
there'll be a decision, and then you can come back if
That
you need to come back.
was my other thought. If we look at this, let's say the committee approved it, this would be approved, and then in your new design, if you need additional variances, you would have to file another application for it.
Madam Chair, could I ask a question? Yeah,
Yes.
can I ask? Have you asked for deferral before?
No, this is my first.
Okay, thanks.
So
When was this application filed, Madam Dick, initially?
So it's not a long time. Madam Chair, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't grant her a deferral on this matter. We have people who have appeared before us previous today, and for consistency, we have granted them deferral when they have only appeared once. I think, and if this was only filed in May 24th, there was no, you cannot say that it was unjustifiably dealt with by the applicant. I think it would be a fear, my submission is a fear to grant a deferral, and then she can come in, and at that point you can decide whether or not it's a case that should go forward.
I think the difference to me is that when we grant those deferrals, it's about changing a design in response to neighbors, city, something. This is change in design coming from the applicant. To me, there is a difference.
Conditions, the conditions may be different, but I mean, you're going to grant it to some people for other reasons and not granting it to the other. We have to be consistent.
Is that a formal motion?
My motion is to grant her the deferral.
Is there a seconder to that motion?
I'll second it. I'm of mixed minds, but I'm assuming that the purpose would still be the same.
At that point,
So I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Mr. Ross,
thank you so much.
so the application is deferred. You will be responsible for paying recirculation fees when the matter comes back.
Sure. Thank you.
Item 22, 1 EASTDALE Avenue. Are parties back in the room? So the committee has before it copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, covering letter from the agent, site-specific section of zoning bylaw 6752, correspondence from the assistant planner, community planning, city planning, Toronto and East York District, and correspondence from the manager, permits and enforcement, parking, transportation services, Toronto and East York District. Good afternoon. Can we have your name and address for the record, please, sir?
Good afternoon. My name is Adrian Latavsky of the planning from Johnston Latavsky. Our address is 235 Lakeshore Road in Oakville, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant.
Okay.
Where's your opposition?
Where's the opposition?
Well,
Or the-
clear,
was it
he had some questions that we were able to chat about outside and answer his inquiries about the design he's
They no
decided to
longer have
leave.
any
No.
issues that they want to bring forward to the committee. Okay. All right, committee members, do you need a presentation, or would you like to proceed to questions?
I'm ready for questions.
Okay, any questions on committee members?
Could you speak to why you think it's appropriate to convert this to purely residential?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons why it's appropriate to convert it to residential. This is designated neighborhoods, and it is a well-established, if eclectic, neighborhood. There's lots of different building types in this area. This particular building is one of those unique types of building types, meaning that it is a commercial building in the established residential area. However, it's had a residential use in it from the very beginning. In fact, the variances that we're dealing with today all stem from a site-specific bylaw from the early 1980s. This site is currently left out of the new city bylaw, so the only bylaw we're dealing with is the former municipal bylaw, and like I mentioned, it's the site-specific permissions that we're dealing with. At that time, I have to admit, I'm not entirely sure why these specific standards were put in place, meaning the fact that residential is permitted, but the bylaw states 1 unit on the second floor, whereas the first floor should be commercial. I can say, however, this is a very old bylaw. It's from like 30-some-odd years ago. Certainly, the general direction and policy of the city leans far more towards residential intensification. Within neighborhoods, it should be modest and appropriate intensification. I think that's exactly the case here. It's allowing for 1 more residential unit on the site, while also allowing a home occupation use. So I think there's really, from a land use perspective, we're not necessarily adding a new use on this site. We're really just clarifying and expanding upon the existing residential permission, and it's entirely appropriate in this case.
I'll give you the chance to respond. My perspective on this at the moment is that the concern isn't so much the addition of the residential unit as I have concerns about the desirability of losing the commercial use. I think the bylaw was seeking to preserve some commercial presence in neighborhoods.
Well, I see your point. However, this is still quite close to other commercial strips, whether it be the Danforth or other commercial areas. The commercial unit itself has been vacant for some time, and I hear your point, but I respectfully submit that in this case it is an entirely appropriate residential intensification. There still will be an office use in it, a home occupation use, but I don't think there will be any net detrimental effect to the neighborhood with the loss of that commercial unit.
I guess, contrary to my friend's opinion, I really believe that the city of Toronto is going through a nightmare with regards to having residential suites available for people, and I like to support residential suites because it becomes a necessity in the city. The city can't absorb the problem with residential suites. This and the beaches down there, I know the area very well. I live in Scarborough, and for business purposes and everything else, there is not very far from anything. So, I don't know. I guess it's a difference of opinion.
Based on your submission, can you just confirm variance 5, 6, and 7, are they existing conditions? Based on what I read, I believe they are, but I'd just like to confirm with you.
Yes, those are existing conditions. If you can give me one moment, I can show you
Okay.
a photo.
Now we all know your,
we all know your
exactly,
access
your
code.
password.
So this, I'll admit the color balance on the screen, but you can see that the site is pretty much all pavement around it today. And then this is another view from the rear, further pavement. The chain link fence that's mentioned in the bylaw hasn't existed, as far as I'm aware, for a very long time. Neither have the various hedges mentioned in the bylaw. Having said that, the intent is to renovate this building, and the city has asked for, although it's not necessarily reflected or needed to be reflected in the zoning, but for new landscaping along the street edge there to soften what is currently a hard asphalt area.
Transportation has. Transportation in their email of May the 14th is is asking you to remove the asphalt within the city boulevard and restore back to soft landscape.
Yes,
You're fine with that?
we have no issue with that.
I'm just curious, what type of home office occupation, and is there not an opportunity to have it at grade instead of in the basement so that you have a certain commercial presence still at grade?
My clients are film producers.
Okay.
And as for at grade or in the basement, I suspect part of it has to do with just the desire of how they would like to and need to have the home arranged. But if you can allow me to ask.
I was just curious if there was, from an animation, was my colleague has concerns about, commercial.
Give me one moment, I can ask my client.
That is weird.
I'll just repeat that back if you weren't able to hear. While the office is itself, of course, located in the basement, is a home occupation, so there will be some fluidity of the office use being on the main floor, whether it be, let's say, the living space being used as well. So it's I think it addresses your point that this is still a home occupation, so they'll be using the whole building at some point.
Bylaw doesn't permit a home office, so that's another variance you're requesting.
Under the new bylaw, is the office use permitted?
It's
Well,
not part, this.
The bylaw doesn't, the new bylaw does not apply.
Not yet.
They haven't, for whatever reason, do you know why this property was not included in
No, I don't, actually. It was
569?
specifically cut out.
It's one of those excluded properties for
Exactly.
whatever reason?
Yeah.
If they want to,
Property specific or area specific that wasn't included?
In this case, property specific.
Just property specific, it wasn't included in 569.
Yes.
with many of these offices and homes, it's going to be a nightmare with the city changing
Do
everything.
we have any further questions for the
No.
applicant? Okay, so we're in committee discussion.
With regard to the new bylaw, the thing that happened was that the cutouts for small numbers of commercial within, they didn't make the cutouts at a bylaw level, or they did, but it was by retaining.
No, but there was, for whatever reasons there were certain reasons why certain properties were excluded
Yeah,
from
I mean,
569
the exclusion, basically, they excluded these one-off,
categories. Yeah.
rather than creating new
Yeah.
categories.
Yeah. Okay, so, thoughts?
Madam Chair, I want to say that I truly believe that this application meets the City of Toronto zoning and building applications, and it meets the 4 tests with the new challenge of transportation, which my friend has agreed to continue to do what transportation requests. I would move that we approve this application.
I'm somewhat of mixed minds, although I suspect that a small business like a variety store, which looks like was in there, has little chance of surviving, which means the building could become kind of derelict as it sits there, and at least with the residential use, it would be occupied. I hope there's going to be some aesthetic improvement to the building, because it's not very pleasing to the eye, in my opinion. Having said that, I would be prepared to second the motion, including the condition by transportation in the May 14th email to remove the asphalt. And hope that you're going to put some planters and do something that is in fact going to be an improvement for the neighborhood.
Okay, all in favor? Your application is approved on that condition.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so,
I moved it. Warwick's.
Ward moved it.
Oh, Warwick moved it, I
So
seconded.
we have finished the
sorry.
1:30 time slot. We'll be back in 5 minutes for the next time slot.
You know, I'm
Okay, we're going to start with our 2:30 session. Just ask the panel members and staff any conflicts or interests in this time slot.
Madam Chair, I want to declare a conflict of interest on item number 37.
36.
37, yes, because it's an economic interest.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so item number 31, agent, 139 Farnham Avenue, agent or applicant. We're not gonna, we're just gonna vet the agenda first, that's okay? So you're the agent or the applicant? Okay, thank you. Anyone here in interest for Farnham? Okay. 32, 15 Roxborough Street West, agent or applicant? No one here yet? Anyone in interest? Oh, okay.
Interest.
Okay, so we'll just ask again in a bit, because the agent or applicant doesn't appear to be here right now. Number 33, 32 Varsity Road, agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? Number 34, 40 BERTMOUNT Avenue, agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? I'm sorry. I have to look longer. So we'll hold that matter down. We can have some discussions. 35, 43 McFarland Avenue, agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? No? Okay. 36, 29 Rowland Street, agent or applicant? Okay. Anyone in interest? Okay. 37, 248 DuPont Street, agent or applicant? Okay, thank you. Anyone in interest? 38, 109 Roseheath Avenue, agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? Okay. 39, 160 Coleridge Avenue, agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? Number 40, 48 AMROTH Avenue, agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? 41, 486 Atlas Avenue, agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just saw that. Is anybody here, are you here for BERTMOUNT? Anybody here for BERTMOUNT Avenue? Okay, no, okay, which one was sorry, it was, my apologies. Anybody here for Roxborough yet? Okay, so there's someone here in interest for Roxborough? Okay, are you the applicant, sir? Okay, so there's no one here in interest, you're all in the same position? Okay, so that item's not held then. Okay, so the only item held to allow for discussion in this time slot is 34, 40 BERTMOUNT Avenue. So are you here in support or, sorry, yes, ma'am? I'm the owner. Okay, and he's my neighbor, so we're not objecting, we're just here. Oh, okay, thank you. Then are you going to be speaking? Not intentionally. Okay. Okay. So there's no holds. No holds then. Okay, thank you for the clarification. Number 31. 139 Farnham. Thank you. A copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have correspondence in support or no opposition from 141 Farnham Avenue. And ma'am, could we have your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, I'm Martha Dorion from 139 Farnham.
Okay. Okay, committee members, presentation or questions?
No, ma'am.
Any questions?
No.
Okay. Thank you. We're in committee then. Discussion or motion?
For you, Madam Chair, this is a very minor variance. It's enclosing a front porch, and it's about half, but there are some other ones there, so I would say that this fits within the context of the neighborhood and would move approval.
Okay. Application. Okay. All in favor? The application's approved. You're welcome. Number 3215 Roxborough Street West. Committee has before a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, letter from the agent, including a summary of similar minor variance approvals. Come forward. Where did everybody go? Could we have your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, my name is Matt Bagnall of Larkin Land Use Planners, representing the applicant and the owners of 15 Roxborough Avenue.
Your last name again?
Bagnall, B-A-G-N-A-L-L.
Thank you. Okay. Committee members, do you need a presentation, or would you like to proceed with questions?
I think I need a presentation.
Would like a presentation? Okay, please proceed then, sir.
Yeah, certainly. We've recently actually been approached by the representatives of number 21, Roxborough Street. They're located 3 properties to the west of the subject property.
Yes.
They have had some concerns regarding the proposed rear elevation massing. It's currently proposed as a step-back rear elevation. While we've endeavoured to respond to some of those concerns over the past couple of days through discussions with their representative, the residents of number 21 are currently on vacation. My client is, however, eager to continue working with neighbours and continue that dialogue once all parties have returned from their respective vacations, and as such, I'd be requesting a referral today from today's hearing so that we could come to a consensus with all the neighbours, or with the specific neighbour who has that one concern.
Okay, we have nothing on record from 21 suggesting they have any interest in the matter.
Okay, I was informed they may be here today to speak to the matter as well, but I've been asked by my client to defer at this time. Discussions have already been started, so we were just hoping for, if possible, an immediate rescheduling, just so that we could come to...
I mean, did you have any conversations with the neighbors before submitting between the time submitting the application and the time that the matter was scheduled for hearing? And when did you guys first have a conversation?
Yeah, we were approached at the end of last week, and we've been working with them earlier this week. We were hoping...
You didn't approach any of the neighbors prior to the notice issuing from the...
Specifically that neighbour, they did not. Immediate neighbours' attempts were made, although the immediate neighbour to the semi-detached property hasn't been within the residence since, I believe, they purchased earlier this year. Number 21 is 3 properties down, and they weren't approached prior to the notice.
Okay, what is the nature of the concerns of 21 that are suggesting that there's going to be any change to the application?
I understand generally they're concerned with the massing of the rear elevation. We've not been able to get specifics from them. We did go to the extent of looking at potential plan revisions. Unfortunately, due to the resident being on vacation, we've not been able to conclude that.
Your client or 21?
Well, actually both, but 21, my client's representatives are here today as well as myself. They're family members. Number 21 are on vacation. Their representative has asked on behalf of the residents of 21 that we defer.
We have nothing from 21. They haven't filed anything with the committee indicating they have any concern or they're asking for a deferral. Do you have anything in writing from 21? Are you prepared to proceed with your application today?
I would have to speak to my client on that.
I would also like to add, they're not next door. They're 2 doors down. I'm just looking at this street map here. On here, they're actually longer than your house, so I'm curious as to why you feel a need to defer and how they are directly impacted by what you're proposing.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a fair question. I understand there were more discussions this morning with the lawyers of number 21. They had mentioned potential appeals moving forward. My clients do want to work with the neighbours to...
On what basis are they going to appeal?
Like I said, I can only speak to... they would put an argument forward, I presume, that would suggest that we wouldn't be meeting the minor variance tests due to the massing of the rear elevation.
I'm sorry to interrupt. If I may approach, my name's Desi Ocello. I'm actually the brother of one of the applicants, and I personally spoke with the council for number 21 this morning. I tried to address their concerns. They were very general in nature. It was with respect to the overall, if you will, massing. I did communicate that very point that your council member just mentioned with respect to the overall building length of our building in question relative to theirs, and the fact that they were longer. There's no specifics that have been provided, but I just felt that at the time, without, he assured me he would be here, actually, and that he would object. And as a result of that, he would also appeal. So rather than, proceed, the concern was
Who is the
that.
counsel for the?
David Bronskill. It was our hope that we believe whatever they could be asking would not really be substantive relative to the impact that we may have on 21, if any. And although we were still prepared to provide some sort of a concession, not to have an objection today.
So is the suggestion at this point of time, you really have no specific understanding of the exact nature of their concerns?
Overall,
or whether or not you're prepared to make any adjustments to the application that's before the committee today?
Yeah, we were prepared to make some adjustments today if we could just have their consent, and we went to the extent of actually preparing those. But all we could get from Mr. Bronskill and his client was a general massing and FSI concern, with no detail. So in good faith, we're prepared to work with the neighbor, but I expected that he would be here, and that's why our planner made these submissions to you at this time.
A deferral, right now, we're looking at rescheduling into next year.
And that's completely unacceptable to us.
So then your only option would be to proceed with the application today.
Okay, we're very comfortable and confident with our application.
Okay.
So do you wish to proceed, or you still wish to seek a deferral?
I think we should proceed.
Okay, so you're withdrawing your request for a deferral?
Yes.
All right. Okay, could we have a presentation then, please, on the application on its merits?
If I could just clarify one thing with my client briefly, please.
Yes. Quickly, please. Okay, so we've now taken 8 minutes to talk about this, and we haven't even started yet. So are we ready?
Yes. So this proposal is for it's being sought for a step-back rear extension and alterations to the front elevation of the existing building. Variances at the front yard setback for front porch, for the setback for the front porch encroachment and front yard soft landscaping are required due to the proposed elevation and porch alterations. Essentially, it's being proposed that the existing canted bay windows and dormer window are replaced with a rectangular bay window, and the porch steps are reconfigured in the front, as is the front yard pathway. As such, the proposed setback of 3.87 metres maintains the existing setback, with a minor increase of approximately half a metre for the front porch platform. Soft landscaping remains approximately the same to what currently exists. The proposed alteration to the front elevation does not alter the existing front yard setback. It is largely obscured during the winter months with mature deciduous vegetation, and even so, it maintains the character of the area, and the variances are therefore minor in nature. Variances to building height, depth, and floor space index at the rear and rear yard soft landscaping are also being sought to allow for a rear extension to the building. The proposed flat roof extension of 10.62 metres represents the proposed building height of the rear exterior main wall. The flat roof is, however, 1.5 metres below the existing ridge line of the roof and matches the height of the dormer windows. The proposed depth of the building at 17.83 at the ground floor is 0.83 metres above the permitted maximum, with the extension being carefully stepped back at second and third floors to reduce any apparent massing as seen from adjacent rear yards. It's noted that a public hearing notice indicates the maximum permitted FSI of 0.6 or 0.6. However, the bylaw allows increases to 0.69 for semi-detached properties built prior to 1953, as is the case here, and with many of the approved variances on Roxborough Street. The intent of the zoning regulations relating to height, depth and FSI to respect the streetscape and area character and to ensure no significant impacts on adjacent properties. The rear extension maintains the existing side yard, is below the existing ridge line of the roof, is not visible from the street or the public realm, and has little impact on the character of the neighbourhood. The step-back extension will be compatible with adjacent properties without causing any unacceptable adverse impacts, with existing mature trees heavily obscuring adjacent properties and properties to the rear. Outdoor amenity areas of adjacent properties are south-facing with no significant shadow impacts envisioned. A number of Committee of Adjustment decisions along the street approving comparable variances for, among other things, FSI and building depth indicate the need to permit flexibility for the relief of some of the standards, and the variances permitting the extensions are considered appropriate. It is respectfully requested that the application be approved, and and thank you for your time.
Question with respect to the depth. It is stepped back. What's the depth at the second floor?
If I could just refer to the plans, please.
Certainly. I guess that I'm really asking, is the variance for depth contained to only really applicable to the first floor?
I can confirm for the depth it's only for the first floor. The second and third are stepped.
They will comply?
Certainly, yes.
Okay, that's the answer. Thank you. Any questions?
And just, again, looking at your submission here, so the front yard variance is because of an existing window, is that correct?
Yes, they're basically squaring off the existing bay window. The setback will remain identical to what is existing.
Okay.
What about your landscaping?
With regards to landscaping, for the front yard, it's almost identical as the existing. They're just reconfiguring the pathway. We are proposing permeable pavers there at the request of planning staff.
What about the rear yard?
The rear yard, there is a small reduction. It's slightly below the 50% requirement. However, there is enough there for sort of stormwater infiltration, permeability, and amenity space.
In your preparation of your application and for the hearing today, in terms of the rear yard landscaping, are there others that have the percentage that you're requesting? Is it uncommon?
Most of the investigations have related to FSI and depth, but I believe that given that the depth variances that have been permitted, there will be similar requirements to reduce that soft landscaping as well.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions, committee members? No? Okay. We're in committee. Discussion or motion?
Through you, Madam Chair. I'm looking at the examples here. Number 47, Roxborough's got a FSI of 0.91. Most of the other ones are a little bit less, the ones that are in proximity to this, but I feel that this proposal is not out of character for the neighborhood. They're all a lot of large, older homes. It's very close to Yonge Street. So I would be inclined to support this application, as I feel it does meet the 4 tests.
I would agree. I find it telling that we don't have opposition here in this neighborhood. So,
Yeah.
very active. This seems entirely in keeping with what we've been seeing in the area, and I'm not seeing a negative impact on the street.
I mean, there are no staff reports to go with this from any department, and to Mr. Carlson's point, usually when we have something on Roxborough, more often than not, we have a room full of objectors here, so I think that speaks volumes. So if there are no other comments, I would move approval of the application.
I will second that.
The applicant's agent had
Oh,
talked about permeable
yeah, I would
pavers.
put the condition for permeable pavers for the front parking. Or walkway. Anything, any hard surface permeable paving, or permeable pavers.
Okay, so it's a motion, seconded by Mr. Carlson. No, front
Front walkway and driveway, like, there's a walkway
It's
as well.
just, it's a front footpath essentially.
Okay. So any walkways,
walk.
pathways in the front, permeable
Driveway.
pavers. Any driveway, walkway.
I
in
mean,
the
the
front.
plans do show that, but that's,
Okay.
with the conditions fine.
So that motion with that condition, all in favor?
Do you know which, sorry,
Oh, wait a
staff's
second.
just asking, which sheet would be the best to,
I think the site plan,
site plan?
correct, yeah, that's what staff have requested to be permeable paving.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. So, all in favor? The application with that condition is approved.
You.
Number 33, 32 Varsity Road. Committee has before a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, correspondence from the Planner 1 at Toronto Region Conservation Authority, correspondence in support or no opposition from Patrick Peltier, 28 Varsity Road, 30 Varsity Road, and 15 Sun Valley Drive. Good afternoon. Could I have your name and address for the record, please?
Good afternoon. I'm Anthony Martin, 43 Norbert Crescent.
Thank you. Committee members, presentation or any questions?
Madam Chair, this is truly a minor
Okay,
application.
so no questions?
No questions.
So we're in committee? Motion or motion?
For approval of this application.
I have one question. Since it's a variance for lot coverage for an ancillary building, if we were to propose to change the position of the building on the lot, would that change the decision, or could we do that when we submit our application?
As long as it doesn't.
As long as it doesn't change the variance that you were, it should be okay.
Okay.
But if you're,
So for example, right now it's on the north property line to the rear, essentially on one side. So if we were to meet city setbacks and put it completely on the rear property line, but lot coverage wouldn't change, it would be the same percentage of lot coverage.
you might have issues with setbacks and with.
Well, the setback is the same from all property lines, right? So I'm just saying I would change the dimensions to meet city setbacks.
So you'd meet the center line distance and you'd pull it back, okay? And there's a public lane at the back?
No, there's no public
Oh,
lane.
Okay. It shouldn't be a problem, but you,
Okay.
yeah. Unless you tie it to the site.
My
plan.
motion was to approve it as it stands, or the application stands before us. If he wants to do anything later, he is left up to him.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Your application's approved.
Thank you.
Number 34, 40 BERTMOUNT Avenue. Committee has before a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, correspondence from the agent, including 3 photographs of existing homes with similar additions on BERTMOUNT Avenue. Correspondence in support, no opposition from 42 Bertmount Avenue, 46 Bertmount Avenue, 44 Bertmount Avenue, 43 Bertmount Avenue, 25 Brooklyn Avenue, and 31 Brooklyn Avenue. Can we have your name and address for the record, please, sir?
Yes, certainly. Good afternoon. It's Bruce Fletcher is my name.
Thank you. Okay, any questions, panel members? No. Okay, there being no questions, we're in committee. Discussion or motion, please?
This is another extremely minor variance. I would move approval, as I believe it to fully meet the tests and be entirely appropriate.
Okay, all in favor? Your application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm going to put a card in. Number 35, 43 McFarland Avenue. Committee has before it a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, planning rationale from the agent, including 2 photographs of existing conditions of the adjacent property and 2 drawings of the subject property illustrating the massing of the existing and proposed addition, 22 form letters in support, signed by owners and occupants of 35, 37, 39, 40, 41, 42, 45, 49, 51, 54, 56, 58, 61, 65, 67, 65, 69, and 71 McFarland Avenue. And I know we've seen you before today, but your name and address for the record, please.
Craig Race, the applicant. This is the owner, John Serafinchen.
Okay, so panel members, any questions?
No, Madam Chair, I think this is minor and it's
Questions?
questions.
So
and
we're in
it's
committee, discussion or motion, please?
supported by the neighborhood. There's 7 positive.
So there's a motion for.
Motion for approval.
Okay. All in favor? Your application's approved. Thank you. Number 36, 29 Rowland Street. Committee has before it copy plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a previous decision of the committee affecting the subject property, and a staff report from the supervisor, Ravine and Natural Feature Protection, Urban Forestry. And your name and address for the record, please, sir?
Good afternoon. My name is Marin Zabzuni for 29 Rowland Street.
29 Rowland Street. Okay, committee members, any questions?
No, Madam Chair, I believe this is a very minor variance. It abuts the park on one side, and I don't believe there's any impact. So I'd move approval of the application as I feel it meets the 4 tests.
Okay, all in favor? Your application's approved. Item number 37.
Thank you.
Do you want to leave the room? Okay, so 248 DuPont Street. Committee has before it copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a covering letter from the agent, email correspondence from the assistant planner, community planning, city planning, Toronto and East York District, a letter from the special services support clerk, Hydro One Networks, report from development officer, property and planning development, Toronto Transit Commission. And can we have your name and address for the record, please, sir?
Good afternoon, Kurosh Mahvesh from FAR Architect, 77 Garden Avenue, Richmond Hill.
Okay, so could you spell your last name for me, please?
So M-A-H
Yes?
V-A-S-H.
A-S-H. Okay. Panel members, any questions?
I assume this fire exit is a requirement under the code?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's the second means of egress, basically, for the 3rd floor.
Okay, so, Madam Chair, this is something that they need to have for escaping a fire, so I would be prepared to move approval of the application, as I feel it meets the 4 tests, and I assume you have seen the TTC and hydro advisories?
Exactly, yes, the owner also is informed.
Okay.
A seconder?
I will.
Okay, all in favor? The application's approved.
Thank you.
Number 38, 109 Roseheath Avenue. Committee has before it a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, covering letter from the agent, including 8 photographs of the subject property in the neighborhood context, correspondence in support or no opposition from 121 Roseheath Avenue, 60 Roseheath Avenue, 106 Roseheath Avenue, and 111 Roseheath Avenue. Good afternoon. Could I have your name and address for the record, please?
Greg Patterson, 47 Kimberly Avenue.
Kimberly?
Kimberly.
Thank you, sir. Panel members, any questions?
Just a quick question. I noticed you have the support of 111. Do you have the support of 107 as well?
I believe the owner spoke with, and they just had a verbal discussion in which they expressed support of it.
Okay. And you're just going over the existing footprint?
That's correct.
So other than the FSI, the other variances are existing conditions?
Well, the fact that the north wall, the setback is very minimal, so we're just maintaining that same setback building.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you, sir. We're in committee. Discussion or motion?
I would move approval of the applications, believe it to be extremely minor and just entirely appropriate for the site.
Okay, all in favor? Your application is approved. Number 39, 160 Coleridge Avenue. Committee has before it a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Correspondence from the acting coordinator, permits and enforcement, parking, transportation services, Toronto and East York District. And your name and address for the record, please, sir.
My name is Tom Sodnampil. I'm for 160 Coleridge Avenue.
So Tom,
Sodnampil. S-O-D, N as in national, O, M as in maple, P as in Peter, I, and L as in lemon, Sodnampil.
okay, thank you. And you're 160 Coleridge?
Yep.
So you're the new owner, or?
Oh, sorry. My address is 1800 Avenue Road.
Okay. So you're the agent?
Yes.
Okay, panel members, any questions?
Just, you're aware that should this be approved, you'll have to contact Transportation Services,
Yes.
okay, regarding permits for
Yes.
landscaping, et cetera. I think this is very straightforward. I believe the parking are existing conditions.
Yes, they are.
Any other questions? No?
I'd be,
Okay. Okay.
Madam Chair, the 2 of the variances are existing conditions. This is to expand the deck just with a canopy, so I would be prepared to move approval as I feel it meets the 4 tests.
Seconder? Okay. All in favor? Your application's approved.
Thank you.
Number 40, 48 Amroth Avenue. Committee has before a copy of the minutes of a July 17th public hearing and the materials submitted for consideration, and a copy of the plan of survey, revised site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Okay, and we know, we've seen you before, but your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of committee. My name is David Smith, 401 Craven Road. Basically, you had this hearing a month ago. It was
Yeah,
with
and I see
regards to
that
the
it.
parking.
Yeah, okay. So you have now listed and given notice of the
all
parking,
sorted.
and that addresses all the issues that you had before. Okay. Where's that? Okay, any questions, panel members?
Chair, I think this is a truly minor one. We've seen Mr. Smith before, and he's back again, and I'll move
It was
up.
painful the first time, yeah. But I appreciate the help.
You won't see me next month.
Yeah, definitely not.
This way, though,
That
you're
was a
covered.
motion?
Yeah.
I'll
It's
second
sorted.
it.
It was worth doing.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
Okay, all in favor? Your application's approved.
Thank you very much. Thanks again, Anita.
Thank you. Number 41, 486 Atlas Avenue. Committee has before it a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 7 signature petition in support or no opposition signed by owners and occupants of 482, 484, 488, 490 Atlas Avenue, 243 Ava Road, and 627 Winona Drive. And can we have your name and address for the record, please, sir?
It's for Xavier, 270 the Kingsway.
Okay. Thank you, sir. panel members. Any questions?
Just one question for Mr. Xavier. Variance number 3, the dwelling will be located 0.84 meters from the existing detached garage. We are required to do it 1.8 meters. What's going on here?
So it's, in plan and site plan, looks like a garage, but it's very much a shed. It's a storage shed, a car does not fit in it, but it is useful storage for the homeowners. So they were looking to hopefully keep that storage, as it is most of the storage for any rear yard items. Like
So it
lawnmower.
looks like the distance separation is similar to 484
Yeah, it's pretty common throughout the entire
in
street.
terms of the distance between the shed or
Yeah.
garage and the rear house. Okay. Right. Thank you. Any other questions?
No other question. I move for approval of the application meets 4 tests.
Have a seconder?
Second that.
All in favor? Your application's approved.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll stand adjourned until 3:30 for the start of the last applications of the day.
Nobody me here.
Aren't you going to keep that forever and ever? Got DuPont detail. Oh my gosh. Yes. Did he walk in? No. Oh, he usually stands over there. Oh,
It was. Yeah, it was here, yeah.
Oh, like how far afterwards? I didn't.
Like 5 minutes.
Okay. Are your microphones off?
Okay, we're ready to start the next session, so we're going to vet the agenda for 3:30. So number 42, 517 Wellington Street West. Agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? 43, 306 to 308 Gray Street. Agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? Number 40, 44A, B, and C, 132 Balmoral Avenue. Agent or applicant? Thank you. Pardon? You're in interest? Agent or applicant? Okay, thank you. So we're going to stand that down so you guys can have a discussion. Number 45, 2 Bridgman Avenue. Agent or applicant? 2 Bridgman Avenue. Agent or applicant? Anyone in interest? Okay, so nobody's here for that item yet. 46, A, B, and C, 83 LEUTY Avenue. Agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? Yeah, at the back. Okay, there's a gentleman in interest in the back. Are you planning to speak, sir? Are you in support or opposition? Okay, thank you. So we won't stand that matter down. Do you have anything you need to discuss in advance? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're holding 132 Balmoral down so that you can have a chance to discuss. And we're waiting for anybody for Bridgman. So we'll start with item 42, 495 to 517 Wellington Street West and 582 Front Street West. The committee has before it copy of draft plan of survey, copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, covering letter from the solicitor, together with sketch illustrating the revisions to Part 55 and schedule of easements, and part listing, then site-specific bylaw numbers 592, 2019, and 593, 2019, planning staff report and council decision on site-specific zoning bylaw, amendment application, correspondence from the senior planner, community planning, city planning, Toronto and East York District, the assistant planner, Heritage Preservation Services, city planning, staff reports from the program manager, Heritage Preservation Services, from the manager, development, engineering and construction services, Toronto and East York District. So can I ask everybody to please put their cell phones, either turn them off or put them on silent, please? Okay, your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. It's Mike Foderick, lawyer for McCarthy Tatro. I'm the one who wrote the letter on behalf of the applicants.
Okay.
My address is 66 Wellington Street West. You can see it there.
Yeah, okay.
So I act for the owners Wolf Corp, Wellington Inc., and they're the owners of the lands described. I've put up on the board a depiction of lands. You have this in your materials in greater detail. What you see there is the ad-grade version.
So we've read everything that you've sent.
You've read
us.
everything.
So do you want to summarize what it is that you're requesting?
It's a stratified consent we're seeking. So to separate the heritage building lands, which we're maintaining the existing heritage buildings, and that's shown in green, and the new building lands, which are shown in yellow, which is where the new 15-story building will be erected. The little nuance here is that there's a cantilevered portion of the new building over the existing building. I just brought a rendering here to sort of illustrate what that looks like. You can see the new building, how it sort of cantilevers over the heritage building on your left. So that's why it's a stratified consent. You'll see the property line isn't straight from the center of the earth to the heavens. It jogs to account for that it jogs to account for that overhang. And so in the middle, we call that the muse. There's going to be a city pop space and a city easement, pedestrian easement in there, and that's all accounted for in terms of the parts. So you have comments, and we worked diligently with staff, and thankfully, everyone seems supportive. There's no objections from the community or anyone else that we're aware of. And so you have a condition from Heritage Preservation Services regarding municipal numbering, and obviously we have no objection to that. And there are some comments from ECS and with a number of relatively straightforward conditions, and we have no trouble with those either. So subject to those conditions, we'd be asking for your support on this. And to be clear, there are no variances being sought because there's a site-specific bylaw which is now in force. And this is something which has been a really positive experience working with staff and making it happen. And the need for the consent is, I think, obvious, is that, the separate buildings will be under separate ownerships, and one needs to finance and actually be able to pay for the money to build that new building without encumbering the existing heritage building. So I could go on, but I think that's the highlights, if you'd like to hear more.
Any questions, panel members? No? Okay, thank you. We're in committee. Discussion or motion?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think, again, this is very straightforward in my opinion, and I would be prepared to move approval of the application, including the engineering conditions in the August 21st report and the heritage conditions in the July 19th report. And the standard consent conditions.
I'll second that.
Sorry?
I've s-
Yeah, I did. I took it off.
Okay. So that's a motion for approval, subject to the heritage condition, development engineering conditions, and the standard consent condition. All in favor? Application's approved on that basis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. What? Agent for Bridgman? Can you? Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, number 43, 306 to 308 Grace Street. Committee has before a copy of draft plan of survey, a copy of plan of survey, photograph of the subject property, covering letter from the applicant, correspondence from Ms. Hubert, solicitor, correspondence from the assistant planner, community planning, city planning, Toronto and East York District, engineering technical coordinator, development engineering and construction services, Toronto and East York District, external liaison, right-of-way control center at Bell Canada. Good afternoon. Can we have your name and address for the record, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Mello with 42 Mid-East Forest in Aurora.
All right. Committee members, do you have questions? Any questions? Yes.
Pardon me, I didn't.
Surveys. Your mic's not on. Your mic's not on, Mark. Yeah, the surveys are here. Any other questions? Okay, we're in committee.
Very straightforward. These were previously separate lots, so I would move approval of the application with the standard consent conditions.
Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Your application's approved, subject to those conditions.
Thank you.
Okay, number 45, 2 Bridgman Avenue. Committee has before it copy of the minutes of the April 17th public hearing and materials submitted for consideration, copy of plan of survey and revised site plan, floor plans and elevations, correspondence from the Special Services Support Clerk, Hydro 1, staff report from the acting supervisor, tree protection and plan review, urban forestry, manager, permits and enforcement, parking, transportation services, Toronto East York District, and the acting manager, traffic planning, transportation services, Toronto East York District, and correspondence in opposition from 329 Howland Avenue. So, your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, thank you. My name is Joseph Mazzatelli.
Okay. So, committee members, questions?
Question.
I was just going to ask, it was deferred. From what I can see, not much has changed, correct? And the
Yes,
FSI is actually increased from what it was last time.
No, everything was the same. What we've done is we've now gotten there's a non-objection from the planner, Catherine Young, so she's not objecting. We reduced the top fence to her dimensions, which is much smaller, and she's basically in a position of not objecting. And in terms of the letter from transportation, it's currently an existing situation with the laneway and the parking, so that's already an existing condition. And last time I was here, I gave about 8 or 9 similar committee decisions that were approved two of which approved coverage of 1.85 at 383 Albany Avenue, and at 536 Brunswick Avenue, 2.07 coverage was approved. So this is a kind of a unique location. We're at the corner. We're facing George Brown and the parking railway portion to the south. We're not really in the middle of a block. We're not affecting anyone adversely. So we're asking that you support this, please.
Okay, I'm just back to the FSI, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the minutes, and it's showing here 1.05, oh no, sorry, forget it. I didn't look at the back. No, I retract my, yeah, it's fine, it is the same. But you were approved at 1.05 at the OMB.
I wasn't involved with that, but that was years ago, yes.
The transportation is suggesting that we not approve the parking.
Yeah, so I don't understand that. They realize that we have access from the lane. Previously, they didn't want us to have access from the street. They're also adding a comment that they would support if there was no parking. So obviously, we are on the lane. We have space for two small cars, and right-of-way is not objecting. The planner's not objecting. So obviously, we would have small cars, tenants with small cars if they park there. If I may, they can get in and out. No, you can't talk. Oh, I'm sorry. The owner's with us. He also had, the reason for the fence on the roof was because he had trouble with the air conditioner being blown off. So he has a letter from his insurance company agreeing to what he's doing.
Landscape, soft landscape, variance number 9, you're seeking 0 in the rear yard, 0 meters square of soft landscape from 25%. Why you need, why 0?
Well, it's just that it's a small lot, and the lot lines are very close to the wall of the house. So beyond that, the owner can provide landscaping, but that's on the city property. And we are providing some landscaping under the steps, under the stairs, but because they're beneath the stairs, the examiner won't count that as landscaping. There are trees and shrubs on the perimeter of the property. I mean, I can present to you some photographs just to indicate the extent of the greenery. These trees are on the edge of the lot.
Thank you. So, can we have your name, please? Are you speaking?
If I may, ma'am.
Well, I do, only
I'm
if
the
it's
owner.
not something that
Yeah.
your agent has already covered.
No, he hasn't covered this.
Okay, your name, please?
My name is Salvatore Benedetto.
Okay. Okay, yes, sir.
If I may, we had issues over the course of the last few years. As you know, we've had torrential rainstorms and windstorms, and because of that, so be it the mechanical screen or whatever it is that we call it here. And Joe will show you. I've had some serious issues with our rooftop air condition literally hanging from the side, as well as satellite dishes and therefore just falling over and hitting cars. So I've had to deal with my insurance company because of this. In fact, they actually, we tried to come up with some sort of solution, and this is the only solution we've come up that would withhold any windstorms so that the mechanical mechanisms up there would stay within the realm of the property as opposed to fall off. There's kids, there's all sorts of students, professors walking through that corridor, and cars parked at all times there. And so this is an added expense for me, but unfortunately I think the safety of the whole thing is more important than is the fact of that I have to spend the money. When I called 311, they actually suggested it. They brought the idea to our attention that we should look into this, and this is why we're doing this. And in fact, after we did this, we've had a few rain and windstorms, and it actually didn't happen, as opposed to prior times where we had the same sort of velocity of windstorms and rainstorms, and we found the air conditions either in the middle of Bridgman Avenue or Tyrell. Cars we had to pay for some cars that, like, the satellite dish just flew right off. So this is more of a safety and security issue, and I don't want to push it on anybody else because it's my responsibility, but if we have an issue with this, then suddenly, like, I don't know, like, I mean, it was something that the city.
So a question,
Yeah.
is everything that's being asked for already constructed?
Yeah, we had to right away because we were afraid of this.
No, not just the rooftop, but the purpose of the application.
That was done, and if I may, ma'am, maybe I should give you a bit of a background. This home was bequeathed to me from my late father, like 10, 15 years ago. This was built the last time we had a permit. The inspector at hand actually saw this. I don't know why it wasn't in the plan or what happened, but it's not something you can build overnight.
No, I'm not.
You know what I mean? And it was there. The density, the height of the attic, everything. The only thing we just did was this mechanical screen to prevent any further damages because we don't want a liability suit coming to us. Everything has been there for in excess of 10, 12, 15 years, whatever the last time the permit was there. I just happened to inherit this. It's not a problem, but it's an issue that is at hand, and I have to deal with it as best as I can. Okay? And if I may, ma'am, just give you this. I don't know if you got it. This actually comes from my insurance company because, as you can see, we've had issues. And we brought the solution to them, or a possibility of the same, that was given to us by the city. And they've actually agreed. They said, that's great. And they actually said that they not only got that recommendation from other clients of theirs, but as well, they're going to pass it on. And insofar as landscaping, I don't know if I showed you, when the property line is the wall, the actual wall. We've been maintaining the outside of this property for the last number of years, at least as of the moment I took it over, and it's cost us, and it's great because it's a beautiful city and that's what we want to do. But having said that, it's really not our responsibility, although I take it. But as you can see, the whole surrounding of the property, adjacent and in conjunction with the parameter of the house, is fully treed. In fact, we don't even want to cut the tree because it's so beautiful. So what happened is it went into the roots of the drain. So I had a drain issue because of this tree, but I still didn't cut the tree. I dealt with the drain and we.
Well, you can't just cut.
No, I know that, but you know. Anyways.
That screen on top.
Yeah, it's all the way to the top, man. It's beautiful. It's actually really nice.
No,
Yeah, it's right on top. Yeah, because we can't put it anywhere else. Such a small lot.
Yeah, well, doesn't look like it lets any air go through it. Hopefully it doesn't blow away itself.
No, and actually.
Okay. Any other questions, panel members? No? Okay, so we're in committee. Thank you. Discussion or motion?
I mean, Madam Chair, basically, the front second, full third-story additions, the front portion of the rooftop mechanical, the fence, green fencing, they were all constructed without a building permit. And so they're asking to legalize and maintain what's there. Then they're asking to, for the rear portion of the rooftop mechanical and perimeter screen fence, a rear exterior stair to serve the ground floor to the roof, plus 2 rear surface parking spaces. I don't know what to say. I mean, it's all hard surface, so in terms of the trees, they were impacted by this illegal construction to begin with. In terms of what's before us, I mean, this house sticks out like a sore thumb compared to the ones beside it. And I would add that since the deferral, nothing's really changed.
Well, there was not, given that it was existing, there was not much that they could possibly change. They were trying to deal with the.
Not really.
Transportation, so it's.
And transportation is still objecting.
Yeah.
Permit parking is not, but transportation is.
If I may.
Sorry, we're in committee.
I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm looking here saying that Joseph Mazzatelli wanted the deferral because he was going to be revising the proposal further, and he was expecting there to be substantial revisions, and there aren't.
I mean, given that we have to consider this as if it were not built, I'm looking at this and what would we not approve if it was proposed new? I have questions about the floor space index, but a height of 12 meters in a residential area with a 10-meter maximum,
Well, and that's to the height of the mechanical penthouse, for lack of a better word, not the
well,
structure.
I mean, in short, variance 1, I would have issues with on its own, but a mechanical penthouse on a house is
unusual.
Not permitted. Variance 6. It's not permitted. It's not something we've ever seen. It's not something we've ever approved. I don't think it's something we would be entertaining were it not already built. Similarly, I don't think we'd be entertaining variance 7. The platform is not something that would be approved. And the parking, we have a recommendation against.
Right.
At which point, we're picking it apart on a level where my inclination would be to refuse the proposal as a whole, because there's so many issues with it that can't reasonably be.
I'm not sure why transportation has a concern with providing parking on site, though. Even though they are substandard sizes, I'm a little concerned about the difference, or not concerned, confused about the difference of, before it was, parking off the lane, and now it's, we don't think you should allow parking spaces.
What they're thinking is it's substandard, therefore the vehicles will be overhanging onto the right-of-way. The substandard parking space thing is always a little odd, but
It's not substandard. It's exactly like my neighbors. Ma'am, sorry.
Committee?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't go through this process.
No, there's a variance for the size of the parking. Whether or not it's the same as someone else's, it's still a variance.
I mean,
transportation services is saying that access to the two spots would be difficult because there is insufficient turning radii. And then the permit parking is saying they don't have objections, but as long as they,
we can see,
get
this
rid
is
of
a
some
thing,
of the
we can
paving.
see that the parking is functional.
But if there had been any landscaping left on the property, the mechanical might not have had
The
to go
report
on
I
the
find
roof.
myself sympathetic with is Transportation Services, August 23rd, that the purpose is to protect for widening that, and this will obstruct that. And then my other issue is, looking at this structure, it's completely out of character.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think we would, taking the mass and appearance of the structure, we wouldn't approve it.
I think those comments from both my colleagues are significant, so I will.
So I need a motion then?
All right, I move refusal of the application as I do not believe it to be in keeping with the official plan or the character of the community.
All in favor? The application is refused.
I just got to say one thing. This young man doesn't even probably own a house. How does he even know about this stuff? We're paying taxpayers' money, and the kid doesn't know nothing.
Excuse me, sir. Had your opportunity.
Thank you.
If you wish to appeal, the information will be.
I will, ma'am. You know what? Taxpayers' money should be going to good people who have incredible
Sir,
experience. Rents.
sir, I'd ask you to please obtain your comment. Okay, item 46. Almost held. That was held. It was held. It was held.
Okay, we'll move forward. 46.
So the committee has before it a copy of minutes from June 12th public hearing, the materials submitted for consideration, copy of draft plan of survey, copy of plan of survey, revised site plan, floor plans and elevations, correspondence from the applicant, email correspondence from the assistant planner, community planning, city planning, Toronto and East York District, staff report from the acting supervisor, tree protection and plan review, urban forestry, 5 form letters in support signed by the owners and occupants of 72, 74, 79, 81, and 85, LEUTY Avenue, letter of interest and concern from Brian Smith at 85 LEUTY, and a letter in opposition from Jean Strimling at 105 Waniva Avenue. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We have your name and address for the record, please.
Spaniolo,
Pardon?
Sam Spaniolo from 78 Grace Street. So in front of you, you have an application for severance and for 2 semis. We were in front of the committee prior, and we asked for a deferral once we had a neighbor who had a number of letters of objections because of the integral garage. So we went back and redesigned the house without an integral garage. They wanted a front porch, so we incorporated a front porch. And they strongly asked for a front yard parking pad, which we know we're going to have to apply for outside this committee, but there is a variance for a 1/4 inch short for the legal parking space. If you know the street, there's 75 houses, 26 of them are semis. 19 are 20 feet or less, so more than 1/3 of the development on the property, on this street, it's a short street, are semis. The 3-story portion is only for the first 1/3 of the house, then it goes down to a 2-story. And then we have a letter of support from the person who had the 29 letters of objections, and she's in support. You have that on file
No,
as
we
well.
don't have, we just got this after, she was on holidays.
Okay, so you're asked that there are a lot of variances being requested.
Correct.
For each of these lots. Depth, height.
Correct.
Undersized lots.
Mhm.
Can you provide the committee with some information?
You
With respect
have-
to the justification
Sure.
of the variances you're requesting?
You have.
Not just that they have the support of the neighbor?
No, but you have email response supporting information on length, what's been approved, and lengths in your, submitted to the Committee of Adjustment by the owner 2 days ago? No, a week ago.
So I've submitted the variances that have been approved by the Committee of Adjustment on LEUTY Avenue, specifically that are similar or exceed the variances that we're asking for in a separate email.
I have that, in a cumulative
We also
impact?
have, we sent in approvals within a few hundred meters of the surrounding area that exceed or are similar to our.
The coverage, the
variances.
GFA.
So the
and the
GFA. and for
landscape.
Landscape and depth.
Yeah.
So in going through, like trying to compare last time versus
Yeah.
now, so basically, what, in a nutshell, I think your FSI is less, but you have more variances than before. Is that because of the redesign, or did I miss something?
So it's the exact same footprint.
Yeah,
Because we had an integral garage, we didn't have the parking pad variances.
okay,
And we didn't have, the zoning examiner did not catch the 2-foot setback variance on part 3, which is added to this one. But the footprint is the exact same. It's less of an impact because it's only 3 stories at the front and less at the back. And the landscape is because of the front porch. Now, because of the parking pad and the front porch, the landscape at the front is less.
I see.
So, but the actual footprint of the building is the exact same. And it doesn't proceed, if to the north side, we are further back than the existing house to the north.
Okay, and I know you touched on frontages, but I'm
Yeah.
sorry I missed it. I know you don't have a variance for lot area for
No.
either one, just the frontage.
frontage.
But what did you say again? There were 19 that
So
were?
there are 75 houses.
Yep.
Of them, there are
29.
26 semis.
Okay,
There are 19 of which are 20 feet or less in width.
do you have it in meters?
So there's more than 26 semis?
Yeah.
26 or 19 or less?
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's more than 26 semis on the street.
Oh.
Yeah. So there's more than 26 semis.
Okay.
Okay, so how many, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Just so that we're
Yeah.
all clear. How many are either the same or lesser frontage than you're requesting in these two variances?
Okay, so 26 of the semis are 22.
Sorry, 19 are less than 20 feet.
Yeah.
Can you go in meters, because our stuff is in
Okay, so it's
meters.
less than 6 meters.
Okay,
Yeah, and then the remainder 7 are 22 feet,
20 between 20 and 22.
7 meters.
so you submit that the proposed lot frontage is in keeping
It's in
with
keeping
many
with
other
what's-
lots in the neighborhood?
Correct,
There-
on
there
the
are-
street.
Yeah. on
We're
the
not
s-
even talking about the other streets because they're even
Right.
smaller.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
that's
There are
fine.
some lots in there as small as 12 and a half feet.
Okay, we're just trying to establish
Yeah.
lot patterns.
And on 46B, number 10, the minimum required for lot frontage for a semi-detached house in the area is 7.5 meters.
Correct.
And the frontage of the lot you're dealing with is 6.1 meters. How do you,
That's what we're saying, is that that's keeping with what's on this street. There are 19 of the 26 semis that are 6 meters
Less than 6 meters.
or less. There's lots.
yeah, I was trying to figure out how you're going to fit it in.
No, it does fit in.
So with respect to, we have
Yeah.
your information with respect to the other variances.
Correct.
that have been approved. Your submissions today with respect to the lot frontage. From variances cumulatively, what's your submission with respect to how do those fit within?
So based on what's on the street and in the character of this street,
Yes.
these are in keeping with what's been approved or what exists
Cumulatively?
cumulatively.
Because you're asking for more variances.
Correct.
Then, I mean, you've given us some examples.
Yeah.
Where the FSIs or the and/or
Yeah.
depths are either equal to or greater than
Yeah.
what you are requesting in your variances. But there are, other variances that you are requesting that you have not, are not reflected in the information that you've provided in these examples. So what I'm asking for you, other than my observations as I've looked at property.
Yeah. So
I would like some
some of the
thoughts from you with respect to,
some of the variances were the reduced soft landscaping in the front because of what we heard from the neighbors. They wanted a front porch, they wanted a parking pad, so it reduced the amount of landscape that we had with an integral garage with no porch.
Okay.
Right? So that's taking care of those landscape issues. The variances for lot frontage, we explained. The depth, we have examples of that. What else was there? The GFA or coverage or FSI, there are examples as high as 1.2 and 1.3. So
I've seen that.
Even
Yeah.
1.5.
And 1.5, a few.
And then for the,
So,
sorry.
let me just finish.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
if you look at the character of that street, there's a number of lots that are much smaller. There's a 12-foot lot that exists. At one time, it was built because that's the lot. This lot was a 42-foot lot
Yeah.
that originally was 2 lots, and it was amalgamated to make one house. So we're not taking, we're recreating the lots the way they were. So,
Okay, all right,
all right?
thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, panel members?
There is one neighbor who wants to.
Oh, I'm sorry, you wish to speak in support, is that correct, sir? Can you please come forward then? And can we have your name and address, sir, please?
Thank you. Brian Smith, 1588 Old Highway 2, Belleville.
Okay.
And I'm the
At one
owner of
point you had a
85.
concern, that concern no longer exists?
I have no objection
Okay.
to the project. I just have maybe a comment or an observation from my point of view.
Mhm.
My understanding is that the first presentation and the first design was either deferred or refused because someone wanted something else in terms of the neighbors wanted a different.
Deferred.
Deferred, okay. I want to make it clear that I have no objection as the neighbor who owns the property next door, that if the developer wanted to revert back to that original design, I'd be fully in support
That's
of it.
not what's before us today, though.
Okay.
They've made a revision and they submitted a different
I understand that. And the fact that my preference was for the behind the front of the house parking, off the street parking, off the pad parking. If it has to be on the pad, that's fine. People often have two cars, and if they put their car inside, if there's somebody visiting and they have a pad, there's somewhere to put the car, the car then won't be on the street. The street parking's at a premium. So if there's a change in the design, if they wanted to do that, I'd support that as well. I support the design as it is. That's it. Okay,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions, panel members? Okay, thank you very much. We're in committee. Discussion or a motion?
Madam Chair, adjustments. They have, this is not one of the standard applications that was sent out for revision and nothing was done. They have made quite a bit of adjustment on this application. They brought us something that may not be exactly what we're looking for, but it fits a pattern of someone acting in good faith. We have received also from the applicant the description of other units on the street that fits or went beyond or exceeds what is there to go beyond the present application. I know this one is a difficult one for the panel, but at this point, I'm going to say, I will support I'll make a motion to support this application.
Applications, all three?
All three.
To you, Madam Chair, I think that certainly the lot size being proposed fits within the context of this neighborhood. I think the lot's fairly tight, so a lot of these variances are related to that. It looks like the applicant did do some homework and talk to the neighbors. So I would also be prepared to support it, and in addition to Mr. Russell's motion, I would add forestry condition number 3 × 2 to end the standard consent conditions, as well as the engineering report dated March 20th. So,
2 trees instead of 1.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I'll second the motion with that.
I think it
And
is
the
a-
standard consent.
It is a street with very small lots.
Yeah.
So the undersized variance is not.
Forestry number 3 × 2.
Times 2.
Engineering, March 20th report, which is this one. And the standard
And the
consent.
consent, legal requirements,
That should be it.
register and numbering.
All in favor?
I'm sorry? Well, if they have, then
conditions?
they'll just scratch them off.
Okay. So I need a seconder?
Yeah, she seconded.
Okay.
I seconded,
Yeah,
Warwick
thank
moved.
you. Sorry. All in favor? The application's approved with those conditions. Or the applications are approved. Okay, number 44, 132 Balmoral. person here still in interest or opposition? Could you come and sit to the left here, please? Thank you. Thank you. Am I allowed again? Sorry. Losing track, thank you. Okay. So the committee has before a copy of draft plan of survey, copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, staff report from the manager, development engineering, Toronto East York District, correspondence and support no opposition from 25 Foxbar Road, and a letter of opposition from 42 Foxbar Road. So for the record, please, can we have your name and address, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last name is Bronskill, B-R-O-N-S-K-I-L-L, first initial D for David, here appearing on behalf of the agent. I'm also joined, Madam Chair, by Mr. Dean from Richard Wengel's office, so in case there are some more technical questions about any of the plans, he's available to answer those questions as well.
Okay, just before we started,
Yes.
we had a chance to have a discussion.
We have, Madam Chair. I was actually going to begin with that. We've had lots of discussions with the neighbor, which we're appreciative of. I think we understand the concern, and I'll speak a little bit to that concern during my presentation. And there's also, sorry to interrupt, Madam Chair, there's also a condition that we're going to be requesting as part of the discussions we've had with the neighbor and commitment we have made to the neighbor.
So may I ask, is there still concerns?
Yes.
Okay, so then we'll have you do your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
So Madam Chair and members of the committee, if you start with page 2, which is the site plan, this shows the two lots that are
Of the
being...
handout? Or-
Yes, of the handout, thank you. These show the two lots, Lot A and Lot B. They also show the different shading and hatching for the stepping of the three-story dwelling. So the third story is stepped back, both the front and the rear above the second-story portions. There has been a lot of work with planning staff. I'll note in the file there is no planning staff memo, but planning staff have been very active on the file, requesting some revisions. All of those revisions have been made to obtain planning staff support for this. So for example, you'll notice the location of the driveways as they relate to the trees. This was done to flip the houses so that tree in front could be preserved. That was a request of planning staff, and that was made. A reduction in the height was requested to the height that's before committee now from planning staff. That reduction was made. There was a request for the interior side yards to meet the bylaw. That request was made from planning staff, and we were able to accommodate that request as well. So you'll see the red line on that site plan is essentially the outline of the as-of-right envelope based on the setbacks and depth and length requirements of the bylaw. With two exceptions, the house fits within that. The variances you'll see on the outside are from 0.9 to 0.76 for the side yard setbacks. And at the rear, we need a little bit of a length variance to get to 17.34 and 17.35 meters. That's technically a bay window, which is normally a permitted projection, but there's a door in that projection. So there's a window and a door. Because there's a door and you can then go in and out through that area, it counts as the length. So if we'd taken off the door and just kept it as a traditional bay window, the house would otherwise comply with the length and depth. I wanted just to point out on the site plan, in the front yard, on both the west and east sides, you'll see there are 4 trees on each side for a total of 8, 2 on private property, 2 on city property. There's even a notation on the east side that says 4 times 70 meter Darwick Green Beach. And if you flip the page to page 3, that even gets into a greater level of detail showing those tree plantings. Those were an effort to address the concern, as we understand it, from the neighbor across the street who doesn't like the integral garages and doesn't want to have their visual presence. So one condition that, should the committee see fit to grant the variances, it would be a condition to attach to the variances that any development proceeds substantially in accordance with the site plan dated August 28, 2019. There would be two purposes for that condition. The first is just to ensure that the massing that's shown on the site plan with the three-story and two-story and first-story projection at the rear are tied down. And the other is, frankly, there's a notation that shows the species and location of those trees. It's something our client is committed to do to try and mitigate the concern about the garages and remains committed to doing. And any approval, we would like to have that condition on the variances, please.
Anita, did you get the clarity on that?
Thanks, sir.
Those conditions?
Just very briefly on some of the variances. Page 4 is a map for the committee. This shows lots with frontages less than what is being proposed. 6.84, no variance is required for the lot, but there are actually 49 or almost 40% of the lots on this street that are actually at or below what we are requesting. We've also included with a red G that there are about 11% of these smaller lots with garages. The variance for the garage, to permit the garage, comes from the fact that the proposed lots are 2.5 feet too narrow. So if basically the width of my shoulders, if the lots were that much bigger, we would not need permission for the garage. That's why that variance is here. You can see that there are 11% of them on the street where it's been granted. Just in the interest of time, if I could then just get you to flip through to the, we've got a rendering just to show it for the committee. And then after the rendering, we've included pictures, just a scattering, frankly, not exhaustive, of garages on Balmoral, including those with the narrow lots. There are also, for example, 124 Balmoral in the bottom right. That's a lot above the 6.84, and it's got a garage. So if these lots were 2.5 feet larger, these garages would be permitted. We just think it's a better planning result to have the garage and a space to park the car. If there was no garage, then the parking would simply occur in front of the dwelling, which we don't think is an appropriate result for what is, frankly, a lovely street. And so, Madam Chair, that's the overall justification. The one quick thing I would just add before I stop, and then you can hear from the neighbor, and then I can answer any questions. OPA 320 is an interesting animal. I anticipate that you're going to hear that on that plan I showed you that most of the garages lie closer to Yonge Street and to the east of the site. The problem is that OPA 320 has two directions in it that are mandatory directions for when considering the neighborhood. First, you look at the general geographic where you would walk. It's a broader area. We've shown that on the map. The second is it does now, through the neighborhood policies, talk about looking at the street, the block, both sides, to understand the character of the neighborhood. But it says the block. It doesn't say half a block. It doesn't say quarter of a block. It says the block. And the block in this instance is both sides, Avenue Road to Yonge. And I think we've clearly shown through the pictures and the maps that integral garages on lots of this size or smaller clearly form part of that existing character. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Through you, Madam Chair, can I just confirm, is it this plan that you want it tied to?
Yes, it would be that one.
Sir, come forward. We'd like to hear from you.
Thank you.
Can we first have your name and address, please?
Jeffrey Citron, 131 Balmoral, right across the street. Citron.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, sir.
So I guess there's three applications before you. The first is for a severance. The other two are for single-family dwellings. The existing lot is a single-family dwelling with no garage, with a side driveway that goes along the back, and there's no garage on the property whatsoever. So immediately outside of my front door, when I walk out my front door, I see a forested lot with a house behind it and a driveway to the far right. As Mr. Bronskill has pointed out, my main objection to the development in opposition is to the garage. I would otherwise have an objection to severing the lots, but I don't know what your procedure or your decision-making is around severing a lot to build two houses when there's only one house there right now. So I can't speak to that. But on the garages in particular, there were some statements made, first of all, that the character of the neighborhood is to have cars located in garages rather than left outside, which is completely not true. I live in a house that has 4-car parking on a driveway. It's only legal to park 1 car there, so I park on the street myself with a city permit. The major objection with the garages is that they're at grade. So I will look directly, now I look into a home or with trees, et cetera, I will look directly into 2 garages. There's a massive tree right in the middle of the lot near the street that has to be maintained. So each of the garages will be constructed, 1 on each side, driveways on 1 each side of that tree. And because they're at grade, I'm looking into garage doors, whereas now I don't look into that. And I'd say the comments made about whatever that OPA 320 is, yes, maybe you do have to look at the entire block on both sides, but certainly when you look at the numbers of the houses that he showed you pictures of, the character of at least half of the block near where my house is are very old houses, nice houses, 100 years old, that do not have garages, that people do not face garages. Whatever decisions were made in the past to allow garages closer to Yonge Street on a row of semis or townhouses, or at 30A or 32, I don't think should impact, a decision about what's in the character of the neighborhood here, and one of the issues that go into, or the criteria that you're considering. I understand that it's not permitted to build garages below grade. I'm not sure why that's the case. I would have no objection if the garage was similar to the one that Mr. Bronskill pointed out at 126, I think, which is below grade. It's not, if you look at the picture of that house, the character is quite different than looking at the 2 houses here, but trying to flip to Balmoral pictures here. Yeah, if you look in the bottom right corner, 124. 124 is below grade, so the look of that house, you're looking into windows and a front door. Do you see in the bottom right of on the houses on
Now he doesn't permit them anymore because of flooding issues.
Right.
Drainage, that
Right.
So below,
Yeah.
reverse slope or
It's
below
only
grade
slightly,
garages?
it's not
Yeah.
totally below grade.
Well, no, it's not fully, but I think if you look at the picture of the house,
Right.
you're not looking into a garage. If you look something like 30 and 30A, which are near the other end of the block, that's what you're looking into basically on this.
That's the reason why is the city is trying to not permit reverse slope driveway.
Right, I get it. But I think you also have, this bylaw doesn't permit garages without a variance, and I'm not sure that I don't know what you consider minor. I don't consider this minor in the character of the house. It increases the house height by quite a bit. So that's really the main concern. I think it's really not the character of the neighborhood. Farnham's a much different street. I don't think that it has any relevance to this, and I think its setbacks of the homes are much further away from the street than this home would be. So I'm just looking if I have any other notes to speak to, but the issue with the severance, again, is also that there's 2 garages you'll be permitting here, not just 1, by virtue of the severance. So that really covers the width of the lot almost entirely. So, as I said, if there were an ability to do this at below grade or something that looks like 126 on here, that would be a different story, but it's, we've had discussions, as were indicated, about landscaping and that, and that's appreciated. But in the end, 4 trees doesn't make up for staring into garages that are not permitted otherwise for the next 20 years or so that I'm living in the house.
Can I just wanted to ask you, these pictures here, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Which ones are you looking on,
The
Balmoral?
ones that the applicant gave us, so
Yeah, on
they're on Balmoral.
Right.
Granted, the lot size may be slightly different, but how do you feel that these that exist differ from what's being proposed in terms of visual look?
Well, I think visually they're, equally as bad. I think, I'd say 2 things. I don't know what circumstances those were approved under, what existed on those lots before those were approved, what your bylaws were and what was allowed and was not allowed. At this point, it's clear they're not allowed, the garages, based on your bylaw. I don't consider it minor to put garages up when they're not otherwise
Well,
permitted.
they are allowed depending on the lot size.
Right, but I'm saying if you're not within the lot size, they're not allowed, right? It's the fact that there's a minor difference in the lot size from what they would otherwise permitted doesn't mean that this is, the visual aspect of this within this whole structure is quite pronounced based on the character of the neighborhood. There are no pictures here of all the houses next door and where we are, but they're all, they're single family and many are semis, and none of them have garages. So I can say for you, for the houses on each side of me, one's a semi, well, they're almost all semis. Across the street, immediately next to 132 as you travel west, they're single-family dwellings, none of which have garages. So you can point to one side of the street and say, look at the whole street, and I can say, well, look at the whole street in the context of the whole street. I think I can't understand this drawing at the back here if it's 10.94 that have garages, but...
Which drawing?
Well, sorry, there's a thing with green and...
Page number 4.
So it's, yes. So if I read this, I'm not sure I understand it.
That's basically showing lots with a frontage of looks like less than 6.84.
Right, and less than 11% of those have garages, according to this.
It says that 11% have a garage. Frontages that are less than 6.84 of those properties, of those 49 properties that have a frontage of 6.84 meters or less, 11% have a garage.
Right, so...
That's what it says.
Right, so...
No? Okay, can you correct me? Because that's how I read.
It's 11% of the lots on the street.
Hmm?
In fact, we missed 51 and 53, which have been 7. It's actually 12.5%. All the lots on the street have a lot of frontage of less than 6.84 meters and a garage.
It's- So it's 12%
Yeah, it's 12.5.
that have the frontage less and the garage?
Correct.
Okay, I think that's what I said, but
Yeah, so that's hardly a precedent, 12%, right?
right.
Anyhow, I don't have anything further to say.
Okay.
Right, any further questions?
Sir, I'm guessing it that you don't like to see those garages in front of you, the two that Mr. Bransky is going to put up there. Now, based on the pictures that we see here, there are frontal garages on Balmoral.
Correct.
What's so different about what Mr. Bransky wants to put up with garages from what you don't want to see in front of your house?
Well, one of them, at least, is below grade, but, there isn't anything that different about them, and they're ugly. And because there are 12% of them on the street, and there've been decisions made in the past to allow them, doesn't mean that you, with a matter new in front of you, should say, well, my predecessor said, well, this was allowed on 12%, so I'm going to perpetuate the same look somewhere else on the block, which is completely not like this. So if you look at, I'm sorry I don't have pictures of all the other houses on the street, but, if there were more, you would have seen more pictures here. So,
Can I just ask a question? So those that don't have garages, let's say on the end of the street where your property is,
Yeah.
do they have front yard parking?
yes, they have front for one car, generally speaking. Some people have permission for 2 cars, but very few of the houses have permission for more than one even.
There is some parking there is some automobiles in the front of properties.
Some, this 132 actually had cars on the side of the house. Their driveway
There's
went
enough room that they
quite a
can
bit back, as does their immediate neighbor. There's 2 driveways side by side. My 2 immediate neighbors have side driveways, so they can park further back. Some park in front. Generally speaking, on the street, most people park their cars in front of their house.
Okay. So not everyone who doesn't have a garage is street parking?
Correct.
So not all front yards are totally landscaped and...
Correct. I'd say that almost all of them do have pad parking, and even, you'll see, even in these pictures, Many of these people park their cars on the pad and not in the garage themselves. So, but the vast majority, must be 90% of them, have pad parking for one car. And as you get closer to Yonge Street, the frontages are much smaller, so the car is right up against the house, and the back of the car is right up against the sidewalk.
So your view is that pad parking is a different impact or different to look at than parking a driveway in the front with a garage?
Absolutely. You're not looking at an above-grade garage.
Even though as you just said, most people park in front of the garage, so you don't really see the...
Well, what I said was most people who have these garages park on their driveway. I mean, that's 12% of the street, but everybody else, you either have a street permit. We have one permit for the street, and we're only legal for one on our house. That's how most streets are, most of the houses are. But it's a completely different look with a car in front of your house than it is with two garages at grade.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any ability for you to approve for a garage at a below grade?
No.
But you have the ability to approve?
Can't change
We can
variances.
only deal with the application that's before us.
Oh,
But if someone had just generally made an application for a below-grade garage, there would be, or variance application or occasional, there would be objections from city staff with respect to that. Because it's against. Hey, Mr. Bronskill, do you wish to respond to the issues that have been raised? Please, thank you.
Just a few clarifications. First, I didn't suggest to the committee that the character of the street is that people park in their garages. And I don't think the pictures would support such a submission to this committee. In fact, people park, I think you can see from the pictures, up and down the street in their front yards. What I had said was having the option of a garage to park your car is a better planning result. And if there was no garage, someone would then just park in the front yard. So I wasn't saying that the character was that people park in their garages. Secondly, in terms of being able to look at the forest, I think, as I tried to indicate to the committee, the driveways were flipped so that prominent tree in the front could stay. The 4 trees that are on the western portion of the site are the trees that exist and are remaining. And we're proposing now through the condition for more trees on the east side in response to the concern that's been raised by Mr. Citron. I don't think the forested view is in fact changing as a result of this application in any way, shape, or form. And in fact, through the condition that we've suggested, I think we're actually improving it and making it better through the 4 additional plantings. In terms of the single-family dwellings that are on the street with larger lots, the bylaw permits integral garages in them. So the only reason we're here is a 2.5-foot reduction in the lot frontage. And I don't understand, frankly, to this committee, if the lots were 2.5 feet wider and the houses were 2.5 feet wider, this would be an as-of-right garage request. The reduction in the 2.5 feet, I don't understand how that creates an impact in terms of a worse streetscape. And in fact, I think Mr. Citron gave you your answer, which is they are similar to all of the pictures we've shown you, the 12.5% on the street. They're consistent with the character of what exists on the street. It's that he doesn't like the character. And I think we're at the garage is the eye of the beholder part of the afternoon, where I'm going to respectfully suggest to this committee, I don't think that those houses, those 12.5% are ugly. But regardless, that's not the question. It's whether or not it respects and reinforces the existing physical character of the neighborhood. And I think even the objector has acknowledged to this committee that what we're proposing is the same as what exists, and therefore does form part of that existing physical character, should this committee see fit to approve it. And so unless the committee has any questions, that's all I intend to say in response.
Thank you. Any questions, committee members?
No questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee.
Warren Committee, discussion or motion?
Through you, Madam Chair, I mean, the lots fit the pattern on the street, and frankly, although I understand it's a change for Mr. Citron across the street, there there are a number of houses that are very similar to what's being proposed. I think the fact that we've been asked to put a condition on to ensure that the extra trees are planted addresses the concern about the foliage. And like, I think that these variances that are being requested do or will generate houses that are in fact in keeping with what's on the street now. So I would be prepared to support this application.
If that's a motion, I'll second it. I just add that in terms of the desirability of front garages, ultimately, it is what the zoning bylaw we have in place seeks to implement. There is a planning case to be made for and against them, and there is caution with regard to it, even expressed through the lot width requirements. But in combination with the parking requirements and the restrictions on front yard parking, the official plan does seek to provide a garage.
I agree. So
With regards to the application and the garages, based on the evidence provided to us, we know that there's no real distinctive change in the character of the neighborhood by dealing with these garages as requested. Further to that, I am always concerned whether or not we're creating a domino effect by putting in something that wasn't there before. But in this case, it does not match. It would not create a domino effect. Having looked at that and the character of that neighborhood and what I've seen, I'm satisfied. I know that the opposition did raise the whole issue of below grade garages, but that's another no-no for the city these days. So we got to be careful what we do with what the bylaw said we shouldn't do. So I would be prepared to support the application.
Okay, so through you, Madam Chair, I would move a motion to approve the application, including the conditions in the July 3rd engineering report, as well as a condition that any development proceeds in accordance with the site plan dated the 28th of August, the one with the trees. I'm not sure if there's another number on the page, but I think, okay. And the standard consents conditions. So
And you covered the issues raised by Mr. Bronskill about the massing.
Tied to...
Sorry?
Yeah, that he would,
Yeah.
agreement?
Yeah, this one.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have a seconder?
I will.
Okay, all in favor? The applications are approved of those conditions. Thank you. And the committee stands adjourned at 4:37. And that is my last hearing.
No, the only one that's going to be back is me. But it's all three of them, Anita.
I know. Did you fill?